In a world of 350 billion movie podcasts, two chumps have decided that now is the time for cult movies to engage in combat. Disagreements will be had, blood may be spilled, and voiceover artists most definitely will not be paid. This is Cult Film Face-Off.
Hello and welcome to episode 44 of Cult Film Face-Off. My name is Chet Roivas. With me as usual is Nick Leonard.
Very foolish words, man.
This episode we're going to be looking at two European films about audience relationships with cinematic violence. Man Bites Dog from 1992 and Thesis from 1996. We will kick off with the first film out of the gate, Man Bites Dog from 1992, directed by Remy Belvaux, André Bonzel and Benoit Poelvoorde. As a youthful all-male film crew document a career thief and serial killer's slow-moving rampage around Belgium, objectivity is steadily lost, and before long they become the murderer's willing accomplices. Man Bites Dog.
That is me, Remy. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm making a film about Ben, a man of many talents. He was a connoisseur of fine foods, a first-rate poet, a philosopher, and a composer. But what fascinated me most about Ben was the intensity he brought to his work. Ben was a killer, an extremely clever and creative killer, almost to the point of genius. He could hit a moving target, sight unseen, and strike at a moment's notice. He was a consummate professional. He was quite a guy. So, when he asked us to join in the fun, we felt honored. I mean, he was the star of our movie, and who were we to say no? Afterwards, we all celebrated into the night, and what a party it was, for a short while at least, until things got way out of hand. Man Bites Dog. It's a comedy about a serial killer that goes straight for the jugular. But whoever thought it would be banned in countries like Sweden and Australia? After all, we were awarded the International Critics Prize at Cannes. I mean, even in Montreal they thought it was a smash. And when we got to LA, they told us it was provocative and powerful. Maybe even the best film released this year.
Nick, have you seen this movie before?
No, I've never seen Man Bites Dog. I've come across it loads in articles. Every time a film comes out that's about serial killers or a series about serial killers or about snuff movies, then this is always mentioned. So I was really looking forward to seeing it. Have you seen it?
No, I read about it at length when I was a kid. I mean, this film came out alongside Bad Lieutenant and Reservoir Dogs. They were in the tabloids persistently, and they were sort of held back from being released on video. Actually, I think Man Bites Dog was kind of deemed to be more of a fringe prospect because it's black and white and it's foreign, so I don't think it got the same treatment. But these three were kind of lumped together as problematic movies, and I'd read a lot about them. I'd never seen them before, and it was interesting to watch it today. What did you think? What did you reckon?
Yeah, I thought it was a really well done film. I mean, it opens. The film opens. You're introduced to Ben, who is the focus of this documentary film team, and he is charismatic and talking really candidly about how best to ballast different bodies. I was just like, okay, great. This is fucking. That's the tone. Dark as hell. I just thought it was just a really well executed film. It's a very interesting film. It's edgy. It's biting. Very satirical. But the tone shifts. I mean, 1 minute, really funny, and then gut-wrenchingly harsh. Yeah, I thought it was really well done. What did you think?
I think it was well made. I mean, I think the central illusion is maintained throughout, which is quite impressive because there's loads of those impossible shot changes where, it would mean they'd have to have two cameras. So when they try and do an action scene in the middle of the film, you just think, okay, well, I mean, that's impossible. But you're kind of caught up in it so that it doesn't really matter. I think it's a testament to some really good acting and a story that's well told. But I just found myself asking, why am I in this weird fantasy land where this killer can walk around Brussels? they'd be living in a police state. He kills so many people.
He kills so many the poor posties.
The postman, yeah. I mean,
he's got a real beef with posties.
Yeah, it's. I mean, because the thing, I'll say this about both of these movies. I really feel like they don't have a point to make. So, I mean, even if it did have a powerful message, I think that, I mean, because it's not a depiction of reality at all, and it sort of thinks that it is. It thinks that there's something vaguely realistic about this, but it's in La La Land. You're watching this guy walk around just kill people. I mean, the population of Brussels now is like 1.1 million. I mean, back then it must have been a chunk less than that. It would be a police state. How would any of this happening? And
I think you're just meant to take that as, you know, I think you're just meant to accept the fact that it's coming. Because, I mean, he's basically getting rid of bodies in broad daylight into, like, I mean, it's like he's so, like, he's so nonchalant about his killings, doing it in broad daylight. I think that's just a kind of attitude. I don't think there's any kind of, there's no reality. He'd be apprehended within the first 10 minutes of the film.
If so, I mean, that's why I got confused. Because I was like, what, if it's in complete fantasy, then it's not really making a point about anything. I mean, I like the fact that when it opens, he's kind of presented to this. He thinks he's a philosopher and a poet, and, you know, he thinks he's cultured and stuff. But you see moments where he's showing empathy, and that's not right. I mean, he's got this loving family and stuff like that. And you just think this is not a realistic. Again,
I thought it was very interesting because his fan. I was reading about the making of the film, and a lot of the relatives are actually relatives of the actor and the guys directing the film, and they weren't actually aware of the context of him being this prolific serial killer.
Oh, I see.
And apparently the mother only realised that was the case when she had to go and visit him in prison. But they were apparently completely, they were not in on it at all.
I don't think that was a great move, because you see this guy coming from this loving family, which is all wrong. I mean, you know.
But I think that just adds reality to it. It's just they really felt like a genuine family unit, and how they would speak to a son that they were proud of.
Yeah, but serial killers don't come from backgrounds like that. That's what I mean. They completely lack empathy, and having this kind of loving... it just was completely wrong. It's another element where I just thought that takes it into the realms of complete fantasy.
Mm. I mean, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. That you know, every single serial killer that's ever been certainly does not come from like a strong, does not have a strong and stable background.
Yeah, right.
But I think that's part of the kind of that's just a part of the quirk of this film, though, is that he's got this whole completely other personality, which, you know, obviously his family love, and they think he's, you know, charming and you know, funny and everything, but really he's this terrible piece of work who's racist, is a womanizer. I mean, he really is a horrible piece of shit, but he's just he's so charismatic and he's so French that he's utterly captivating. I thought this is interesting, that this reminded basically is like Henry Portrait of a serial killer if done by the Spinal Tap team.
Did you laugh at it much? I mean, I thought the only overtly comedic moments were when he was just being prejudiced, like when he was...
Well, it was making me giggle when he was just being such a piece of shit, and he was talking about... It made me laugh when he was in a building site and he said how he killed 2 Arabs, but he obviously buried them facing Mecca.
Yeah, right. And then you know, he's pulling down the... You know, he said, I can't believe they hired a black guy as the night watchman because you can't see him coming and all that stuff. Just for him being horrendously racist. But in terms of comedy... Aside from that, I just thought it was just relentless bleakness. I didn't think of it as funny, apart from when you were just kind of observing how appalling he was. That guy is a terrific actor, though.
He's brilliant.
I mean, he's called Ben in the film. Benoit Paul Verde. He's credited as one of the directors. Yeah, I mean, there's one fantastic scene. My favourite scene in the film is when he invites them to go to dinner to eat mussels, and they all start turning him down, and he starts getting really, you know, you can see him turning a little bit. That was a really well played scene, really terrifically performed.
My favourite scene, but I mean, it was is the granny snuff. You know, you think he's being compassionate, but it actually he's with this old lady. He gets invited into her house with a film crew. You know, he's engaging her in a nice bit of conversation, and then you think he's being compassionate about the kill. And he basically shouts at her and sends her into this kind of sort of this heart attack, and it actually transpires that he's just saving a bullet.
Yeah, right.
And then he ends that scene with a pun saying, "Let's get to the heart of the matter." That really cracked me up.
I do. I have a problem also. I mean, again, I was kind of watching this thinking, if this is trying to be realistic, why is it also at the same time completely set on another planet? I mean, the fact that there was no police involved, I thought was really lazy. I think that's a really risk-averse technique because audiences need to be impressed or surprised by depictions of police procedure because we're so used to seeing stuff like that. And when you don't have police in the film at all, I just feel like it's trying to avoid scrutiny.
I just think that it was shot on an absolutely microscopic budget with a group of friends. So I just don't think they had the capacity to be able to put that in there. And also, I don't know how would the viewer have access to those exchanges with the police when everything is through the view of the documentary film team.
They could have found a way of doing it. The fact that it's basically consequence free until the very last, some of the last scenes, I thought was just a really weird. It's another technique that I'm confused. I mean, I also completely 100% did not buy the journey of the filmmakers because when I was a kid reading about this, I read lots of articles about. I got the gist of the film that they are sort of training this guy, and then in the second half they end up sort of becoming compromised and they sort of participate in a gang rape and sort of help him commit murders. They were assisting him from the get-go, and they aren't even prepared to do anything about their dead friend halfway through the production. So, I mean, I don't know what the message is. If you have no morals and you hang around...
It's very nihilistic.
But it doesn't. But what's the message? If you have no morals and you hang around with a serial killer, you might go that way as well. It's It's stupid. It's a stupid. I think this film is an idiotic movie. I'm not surprised that it doesn't have. I don't think it's going to be around for much longer. It's just one of those films that's the cult of it seems to be, if not dead, then almost dead.
I think the comment it made to me was. I think it's this whole thing about. Fascination with serial killers and the personality of serial killers, and you're basically getting complete access to this fantastical serial killer, and it's kind of giving the public kind of what they want. People, the public are fascinated with serial killers. So I think for me, it was about that, and I just thought it was done. It was in an intelligently deviant way. It's a cruel film, and I think maybe it's one that's hard for some to warm to. But I just thought it was pulled off really well. I mean, with such a meager budget, and I was completely hooked. There was no flabbing.
I was engaged, and I think it's a very technically but I think it's a technically proficient student film because it's about posturing, it's about pushing their luck, it's about breaking a few rules, and about being brazenly obnoxious. But it is not a thoughtful movie. As soon as you start thinking about it, I think it crumbles because if it's making some kind of statement about how we're all fascinated by serial killers, why not present a serial killer who vaguely resembles somebody who might have existed, rather than this guy who comes from a loving family and has fancies himself as a philosopher and a comedian.
I think they're just doing it to use the skills of the actor. Because that's what makes it captivating. Is you have this charismatic killer. I mean, he's the linchpin of the film.
Yeah, I mean, also the fact that he eventually falls foul of the Italian mafia, and that's how he gets his comeuppance. I mean, that's a really it's cliched, and it's
absolutely that for me. I thought that was really cliched as well. The way it was ended, he just gets popped off while reading poetry.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a cop out, and I also, in terms of things that I think are just superfluous. There's too many scenes of them sitting around and getting drunk, and there's little moments that you can tell the filmmakers think are potent, and they're not. Like when Ben's mother says, "Oh, if they ever catch the kid, the killer of that child, take him to the electric chair or give him the death sentence," and it cuts to him like, if only she knew I did it. I'm like, what to what end? What is this saying about anything?
I did like the scene when he just guns in front of everybody. He just guns the guy down, and then like the kind of madame that he went to her house earlier on in the film and talked about getting his arse tanned while fucking because they have heat lamps above the bed. I just love the way that she just got this blood splatter all over her, and she just presents him with like I think a glass of wine or something. It's just done completely deadpan. That was done really well.
It's another scene that confused me. I just thought it's a film that I feel like this is the kind of movie I had floating around in my head when I was 16 years old. There's an air of punk kids trying to lecture you about something, and this is a subject of movies, and it probably will be forever, that say, hey, violence in real life's horrible, but you like it on screen, don't you? Yeah. So what? What else? Are you going to go any deeper than that, or are you just going to bark that in my face? Because I'll take it when Michael Haneke does it, but this, I was just like, what point is being made? And also, do you know what the literal title is in French? "C'est arrivé près de chez vous," which is
it has happened near your
home. Oh, look, I mean, everything about it is a student film. It's like, look how fucking near the knuckle we're being, and look how.
But this is, I mean, it is done by a bunch of very young first-time filmmakers.
Yeah, I know.
That's why it feels like that. Yeah.
We've got a point to make. No, you haven't. This is why I was annoyed. I mean, I think the techniques sound, but I just felt like this is a juvenile, stupid movie. I really just it kind of pissed me off because it's a bunch of people standing there convinced they're making a point, and I was like, "What's your point? What is your point?"
Yeah, I don't think there's much depth to it. I think it's kind of quite surface of what it's trying to do.
I think
I think it's executed really well. I'm not. Yeah, it sounds like it really rounds you up. I actually enjoyed it.
I think it's the kind of film I would have loved as a child, and I would have gotten older and thought, okay, this film's fucking stupid. Do you know, I mean, when this film came out, I seem to remember one credited director, Remy Belvaux. I remember that being accredited to one.
I thought that the main lead and another guy are credited as the directors.
They are now, but I can't remember whether that was always the case. Maybe there was some kind of dispute, because I could have sworn Remy Belvaux is always the name that I remember reading about as the director. So whether that changed in subsequent years or whether that was just me misremembering, I don't remember. Did you hear what happened to him? He died 38 years old.
Shit! No. How did he die?
Suicide.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, according to the BBC, his family left a statement which was weirdly candid. He was 38 when he died, and they said he leaves behind one masterpiece and tons of regrets, which is a really weird thing to say when you're asked to give a statement in the wake of someone's passing. It's incredibly morbid. But yeah, I mean, back to the movie. I really didn't like it. I thought it was a really, really competently made student movie, really well made, but I just kind of got aggravated. I suppose this is the other thing. It keeps pressing forward like it's making some grand statement, and on the other hand, I do feel like you're supposed to watch it and not really think about it.
Yeah, I agree with the latter. I don't think it's not there trying to be. It's just presenting. It's presenting a fly on the wall documentary in a very dark, deadpan way,
in which reality is not a factor at all.
It's not. I think that's the whole thing. It's so not grounded in reality. You know, he's so brazen and so candid. I mean, you know, he's just chatting in public about how, you know, he kills people and how he does this and how he does that. I mean, you know, he would be apprehended within minutes. I mean, he would be nicked and he'd be thrown in the slammer. You know, quick smart. But it's not. It's in this kind of fantasy world where it's kind of like following a guy who, you know, is a fucking stand-up or is has got a menial job or something. That's the whole. I think that's the whole what it's trying to put. You know.
Yeah, but then like halfway through when they start committing crimes with him, I'm like, but they were complicit in it from the beginning. Were we supposed to just think it was okay that they were following him around and documenting him strangling fucking postmen? I don't know.
Well, I don't think this is it. And they were complicit. I don't think there was a turn. It was like from the off. They're kind of enabling.
That's always been the synopsis. Before long they start to get compromised. I mean, but
I just think they were like that from the off. I don't think there was this whole kind of.
But that's why. That's again this film. It just it appears to be doing something and it just doesn't work. I don't know. I'm confused. I basically hated this film. I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt, but it felt like it's one of those movies that seems like profound when you were about fucking 12, but I just started. It just annoyed the piss out of me, basically. So I mean, it's competently made, but I mean, I didn't have that with it. I was really kind of wrapped up in it, and I enjoyed it. Okay, fair enough. All right, have you got anything else?
No, that's it. Let's crack on with the next one.
Okay, let's move on to our next film, which is Thesis from 1996, directed by Alejandro Amenábar. Hold on.
I'm in the bar. Alejandro, I'm in the bar. I'm going to get the drinks in.
Alejandro Amenábar. Okay. Thesis from 1996. After discovering a snuff film while doing a thesis on cinematic violence, film student Angela is stealthily pursued by one of the people responsible for the film's creation. Thesis.
No te muevas.
Esto no es algo aislado, es un negocio. Esa gente trafica con cintas. Accidentes, torturas, asesinatos, allá abajo tienen de todo. Te matarán para hacer una película.
Me llamo Ángela. Me van a matar.
Okay, Thesis, I had literally never heard of this movie until it was suggested we do this episode. Thanks, incidentally, to Lagalatito, I think that was the name. It was actually a request that came via my Xbox, if you can believe that, as an episode suggestion.
21st century.
Yeah, so thank you for the suggestion. But I'd never heard of Thesis. Had you?
Never heard of it.
So how did it go down?
I mean, I'd heard of the director because I know that he'd done the others and the Sea Inside, and this was his kind of first breakout movie. I really liked the opening sequence of this film. I was really interested. It wasn't revealing too much. It was really full of atmosphere. I was like, brilliant. How's this going to pan out? For me, this feels like, it's interesting how you mentioned like, it felt like a university kind of project film. I thought this massively felt like a movie buff who loved film, who's at university, and he's made this film. You know, it sets up a kind of investigative film where, you know, is there going to be red herrings? Is there going to be are things not quite what they seem? But it is so formulaic and far more like Scooby-Doo rather than anything that's got any kind of proper sleuthing behind it. So I was disappointed in this movie. What did you think of it?
Again, I think this was a great pairing because I think this is two idiotic movies. I really thought this was a fucking stupid film. It's a very handsome film. I think it proves that the director can direct actors. He can choose the right collaborators because he managed to get a very experienced cinematographer on board. So it does not look like a debut at all. It's a very good looking film. I think it's as proof that he can direct a movie. I think it does that job very, very well. But when I realised this was about snuff movies, I thought the first thing that jumped into my head, for better or for worse, was 8mm.
8mm,
yeah. And I thought, how this cannot be as silly as 8mm.
Oh, it leapfrogs because 8mm is dumb as hell, but it fucking leapfrogs over 8mm in the dumb states.
When you first meet Kima or whatever his name is, and he lives in basically a house of horrors and he eats meat with his hands, I thought, again, we're in fucking La La Land. As a detective movie, as you said, it is a colossal failure.
I mean, it reminded me. The new suave Professor Castro turns up. You're just like, it's so fucking obvious. You know, a poor man's Jimmy. He looks like a poor man's Jimmy Cameron. I mean, it's so obvious that he was going to be involved in it, and yet he's involved in it.
Yeah, it's true, but it's also there. When it threatens to become, to sort of document their investigation. There's a scene when they realise that an aspect of this snuff film was filmed using a digital zoom that only a few cameras have, and you think, okay, they're going to look into this, but the guy just has all of this information on pieces of paper in his house. Apparently, he has the information about every video camera that's ever invented, just sitting next to where they are. I mean, do some detective work. The fact that the papers are just there.
It's crushingly silly. It is really melodramatic in places as well, and it's as subtle as a sledgehammer to the kneecap. I mean, it sets up, the precocious sister. She's going to be used as bait later in the film. She's going, that was signposted. I mean, everything there is signposting all over the place in this film. I mean, there's this jump scare which happens towards the end of the film at Bosco's house. Did you see the telegraph jump scare? I mean, I think it is the most telegraph jump scare I have ever seen in the film. It's where he lights a match and you're like, when's he going to jump out? Oh, there he is. He jumps out. When we cut the video of this, we'll have to insert that in there.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that moment, but I mean, it must have been so flat that it didn't even register. I can't even call it to memory, and I only watched this 2 days ago.
I mean, the thing is that I love the opening sequence of this film. Did you like the opening sequence?
How did that open again?
Well, it opens with her on the train, and there's been a fatality on the train.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and they all, and just the way it's cut, and it's really atmospheric, and it's completely ambiguous of her thoughts and reactions. I mean, she's solid. The female lead is pretty good in this. It's just she's not given anything. She's not given anything to round her character apart from she's someone who's doing a thesis on the violence on the screen, and she's someone who really doesn't like violence. That's her character.
And but I mean, it's just she's an idiotic character, and there's that we're supposed to believe at one point that the culprit who made this movie was just in the same university cafeteria 2 years after the girl in the video died, just wielding a camera around, and you're supposed to be like, oh shit, there he is. That's probably the culprit. But what is the likelihood? And there's a snuff video library in the basement that no one's been in for years.
It's someone who's watched way too many Faces of Death.
Yeah, I mean, and try to have some sort of deep thoughts about it. I mean, at one point they're in a seminar, and the teacher says, Hollywood's a business. It's not an art form. You've got to give the audience what it wants. And is that supposed to be a bad sentiment? Because this film does that.
Well, that's what this is the problem. It's not making some critique or point about exploitation and movie violence. It's portraying exactly what it's giving. He's giving what the audience want by giving us this horrific snuff video, which is pretty fucking tame, which is shown that the characters are so repelled by, and he's completely copping out by just giving us that. I've a special note I made to the music that's played in the nightclub.
It's amazing.
I mean, we need to cut this into this episode because you've got to hear it, because there's never ever has that ever been played in a nightclub ever. No. And it sounds like the nightclub system is basically an iPhone being played into a cup.
No, an iPhone. I mean, an early Nokia, I reckon.
It's just treble. There's no mids, there's no bass, and it was just like, that cracked me up. That was a highlight.
It's basically a primitive ringtone, and it doesn't convey the illusion at all that they're in a nightclub. Like, you don't for one moment believe that music's playing in that environment for a second.
Not a second.
It's like someone playing a ringtone on the soundtrack. It's terrible, that bit. Things are thrown at them. Oh, okay, but aren't they supposed to be investigating stuff? The amount of stupid and just in terms of behaviour, there's little moments like when they're locked in a basement by whoever made this movie. Obviously, he's going to want to kill them, and all they've got is a box of matches. There's a moment where Angela asks Kime, she says, "How many matches have we got left?" And he checks and goes, "Oh, they're all gone." There is no way that you'd have just... those matches are your lifeblood in that situation. Oh, yeah, fuck, I just used the last one. No, absolutely not. Also, there's a moment where Angela finds a camera battery in a camera nut's house and goes, oh, maybe it's him. The guy's fucking house is just camera equipment and camera books and stuff like that. Is that supposed to be a twist? And at the end, Angela's tied up while holding a knife. How else did she get the knife? Do you remember that? She's got a knife in that.
How did she get the knife?
He must have tied her up while she was holding the knife. Yeah. That's fucking... it's filled with moments like that where you're like, that is so stupid and so lazy. I can't... But I mean, yeah. The whole second half of the film is it him or is it him? Is it him or is it him? Which one of these guys is it? I mean, for 2 hours?
Have you seen... Alejandro Amenabar's other films? Have you seen any of his other films?
I haven't seen the original, Vanilla Sky. The others is tremendous.
Yeah.
I remember really liking The Sea Inside, but I don't remember much about it. So I've seen bits and I've seen a few. I mean, he definitely proves his worth as a director here. But the fact that I don't know. I think this is just stupid. I don't think anyone could make a good movie out of this idiot.
No, it's got no redeeming features, this film. I would really stay away from it. And, maybe there's a reason why we've never heard about it. It should stay, in the recesses. Yeah, it annoyed me. The film annoyed me. It ended, and I was just like, I feel pissed off. I've had to spend 2 hours with this.
Yeah, and the fact that, at the beginning, Angela's professor dies from a heart attack watching a snuff movie, and she steals the tape. And throughout the film, people are kind of asking, oh, do you have a theory about what killed your professor? And it's like, he's an asthmatic old man who had a heart attack. I mean, everyone's suspicious. What's the mystery? I mean, there isn't really a mystery. I mean, where did the tape go?
There is no mystery. I mean, because also you're shown everything as well. You're shown this this secret level of the library, which has about 150 different snuff tapes in there.
Yeah, I mean, come off it. It's the same. It's Man Bites Dog and this are very similar. It's it's like we're making a statement here. What is it? I don't know.
I think this is far more brazen and far more trying to have a deeper meaning, deeper levels on this one in Thesis compared to Man Bites Dog. I mean, I think this is full of its own kind of self-importance. It's making a statement, which is ridiculous because it is making no statement whatsoever. It's just pandering to the themes it's trying to vilify.
It's saying the same thing as Man Bites Dog in that you don't like violence in real life, do you? But you like it in the cinema. Yeah, I know. What of it? Are you going to? What else? Is that it? What kind of statement's that?
Yeah,
people are going to be saying that for as long as cinema exists.
Yeah,
it's like, what?
Yeah, of course.
Are we going to explore this, or are we just going to bark that in your face? Even without that stuff, even if you ignore that, as a detective movie, as a thriller, a fucking washout.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the last 10 sort of 15 minutes, it ramps up at the house, and all the violence there is just really cartoony. When Bosco's putting the boot into to the snuff geek, it's just so over the top, and there's no tension. There's no tension in that house. You don't fear for anyone's safety. You're just kind of like, this is dumb as hell.
Well, you don't ever get invested because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is Angela's just going to turn around. Oh, I've got a knife, by the way. I was bound and tied up to this chair. All the while, the person tying me up to a chair didn't realise that I was holding a knife the whole time.
Yeah,
so I mean,
that's something that's terrible.
I mean, yeah, it's just an exercise, and I appreciate it on that level. It doesn't survive any kind of scrutiny whatsoever.
So which way are you gonna go when we're talking about deciding a victor?
I think both of these films suck.
I think Man Bites Dog garrots Thesis until its dentures pop out of its mouth. Man Bites Dog is an infinitely better film than Thesis. Thesis is dung.
I think they're both done, but I definitely think Man Bites Dog is better. There's everything about it is better.
I mean, 100%. Basically. I mean, there's a reason why it won a Critics' Award at Cannes in '92. There's a lot of enjoyment to be had if you've got a very dark persuasion kind of for Man Bites Dog. But don't be expecting multiple layers. But it's a really well made film.
It's well made for sure. Yeah, well performed. I agree with that. So yeah,
superb.
Okay, well there we go then. Man Bites Dog is the winner. So yeah, there we go. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Check out our social media channels. Check out our YouTube channel. All the episodes are cut to video there, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with a new episode. So thanks for listening. See you later.
Ciao, blah.
Cult film Face Off.
In which black humour turns to abysmal horror, dry laughter to appalled silence. Now, exactly where that moment comes depends on your own ability to stomach murderous satire and deliberately repulsive subject matter. For the filmmakers, it comes about 2/3 of the way through in a sequence which actively demands that the audience either turn away or walk out. For some of you, however, it may come the moment we first meet Man Bites Dog's serial-killing anti-hero, the cheeky chappie with a smile on his lips and a gun in his hand, in whose company we're being asked to spend the next couple of hours. Shot in grainy handheld black and white, the film set out to parody the kind of slice-of-life docu-soap TV of which we've all seen rather a lot recently. Specifically, the filmmakers wanted to show how the presence of a film crew can affect the world around us, how the reality which we see played out on the screens may be nothing more than a performance played out for the benefit of the cameras, who are in turn simply giving us, the viewers, what we want. We demand shocking news stories, hence the newspaper editor's maxim that when dog bites man, no one cares, but when man bites dog, that's a story. So what the thrill-seeking audience get is a lively, amoral odyssey which starts out in the genre of broad farce and then gradually descends into something altogether more disturbing. Blurring the lines between fiction and reality, the film's directors and producers appear on screen using their own real first names, notably Remy, the stupidly engaging psychopath who's spurred on by dreams of fame and fortune to commit ever grosser acts of violence. As for director Andre, he starts out proclaiming an editorial distance from his subject, but becomes gradually more and more implicated in his vile antics, until finally there is no distance between journalist and murderer. And that's when Man Bites Dog turns on its audience, attacking them for watching and enjoying any of this in the first place. Now, this may not be anything shockingly new. John McNaughton's Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer worked through many of these ideas before, and regular viewers of extreme cinema will know that they also crop up in the work of Austrian director Michael Haneke. What is surprising is that in the UK, Man Bites Dog was passed completely uncut on both film and video, a decision that the BBFC made long before the film achieved notoriety, when the censors thought that no one would be that interested in a black and white Belgian art house movie. How wrong they were, but luckily to our advantage, because it means that we can now bring you one of the most controversial films of the 90s in its definitive, disgusting director's cut.